Hey everybody, how's it going? Stabman coming back at you once again, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some Blu-rays that I picked up from Best Buy recently, as they usually do during the holiday season, the Halloween season. They put some horror-related Blu-rays on sale, so of course I had to check that out and see what was there, and I was surprised to see quite a few titles that I wanted that were not yet in my collection and were very well priced. Because usually when these sales come about during Halloween, it's usually a lot of the same stuff we've already seen before a million freaking times in slightly different packaging. And in fact, I believe there is some slightly different packaging now for like the Universal horror movies and for the, what are the Fox ones, I think, with like Young Frankenstein and Amityville Horror and all that stuff, those ones, because those are usually the ones that go on sale during this time of year. I was not expecting much, but I was shocked and surprised and delighted to find that there were actually quite a few titles that I wanted in my collection, and they were on sale for a better price than I've seen for quite some time, if ever. Some just the lowest price I've ever seen them. So yeah, that being said, let's get started because I am running out of tape here and it's going to take me a little while to get through them all. So let's start with the one that cost the most first, and that would be I Saw the Devil. Now, this isn't necessarily a horror movie, but it is very horrific. It's a, what is it, Korean? Yeah, it's a Korean crime drama, if you will. But when I call it a crime drama, I feel like that doesn't go far enough, because there are elements of this movie that are very dark and disturbing, verging on like Silence of the Lambs kind of creepy. You know what I mean? Like the bad guy in this one is very much the Hannibal Lecter type, but some might even say he's even worse. So yeah, this is very dark, twisted, and disturbing. So it's got elements of like Silence of the Lambs, but it's also got elements of things like Old Boy, if you will. There are those really twisted elements from like American films, but there are also these twisted elements from films from Japan, and they're all just melding and mixing it together into this interesting Korean film that is equal parts horrific and, disturbing, dark crime drama. So, in suspense, obviously. There's a lot of suspense in this as well. I don't know what else I can say about this except just to say that it is an amazing movie, and if you have not seen it, you need to see it. It is so fantastic. I would say it's probably one of my favorites, one of the best movies I've seen in the last 10 years, bar none. I would put it in like the top 20 of movies that I've seen in the last 10 years. Easily. I don't know where in the top 20 it would go, but probably be pretty high. So, yeah. Just going to say, if you haven't seen it, you absolutely have to. Also, it is worth noting that Adam Wingard, who you may remember from things like The Guest or VHS, he did a segment of VHS and VHS 2. He also did You're Next. He's a fairly notable name in the horror community, right? And recently he also did the remake of Death Note, which a lot of people hated, but I thought was actually pretty cool, pretty decent, for a remake at least, right? Adam Wingard is signed on to do a remake, an American remake of I Saw the Devil. I have mixed feelings about this because I know there's no way it's going to be better than this. This is just way too good for any remake to even touch it. However, Wingard did kind of prove something to me with Death Note, because Death Note, believe it or not, in my opinion, is a pretty good movie in that it doesn't try to be like the original source material. It takes the concept of the original source material and puts it in the framework of the American culture that it is set in. So many times when you see a movie or a TV show or something like that that's being remade into an American movie or television show or something like that. Whatever it is. If it's being remade from the original source material in Japan, they try too hard to try to make the cultural aspects of the Japanese show and Japanese story fit into an American framework. What Wingard's Death Note did was to take the very base concept of the story and give it an American framework. Just plop it down in the American framework and make the characters American, make all the things that are happening American, make their reactions and the way they behave American, not putting any of the cultural stuff that was originally intended to be Japanese, originally intended to be a part of that particular culture from the original anime Death Note, not taking all those aspects and putting it into an American context, but instead just saying these are Americans and this is how they would behave if this were the particular scenario they found themselves involved with, you know what I mean? So it's got more notes of things like the mass shootings, sadly, that we see in American society. Now, they don't necessarily play too much on that in the movie, but they play on the very concept of young people who feel disenfranchised and then use that emotional disconnection with society to give themselves the feeling that they have the right and the power to take lives, you know what I mean? So it has that American aspect to it. And then it also has the feeling, it reminds me a lot of the movie Heathers and even some John Hughes movies to a certain extent. So he's clearly playing on a lot of American themes in this movie, and that's what I liked about it. That's what I liked about what he did with Death Note. So if he can do that with Death Note, then I feel like he might be able to do something similar with I Saw the Devil, and it might not be a terrible remake. I have a lot of faith in Adam Wingard because of Death Note, and because of everything else he's done that has just been fantastic. But even if he's able to make it a great movie, I don't think it'll even remotely be able to touch this one. So I still recommend getting this one. Found it on Best Buy's website for $9.99, which is the best price I've seen for it in the United States ever. So yeah, definitely worth $10. Next up is an upgrade. I decided to upgrade a Ty West movie that I have on DVD, and it's every time I see it, it's like $15 to $20. So when I saw it sitting there for $9 on Best Buy's website, I said, yeah, I'll do that. I picked up House of the Devil here on Blu-ray. I think I've talked about this one before, but just to give you a base idea, it's very much I don't even want to say like a prototypical horror movie, because it's not, but it has like these elements that are trying to return to the heyday of horror, right? To the 70s and 80s style of horror movies. And I really love that about it. I love that it doesn't go too far in trying to scare you. It doesn't try to throw in a bunch of brutal, gory death scenes. It just does the perfect amount of disturbing scenes and scenery to make you just go, you know, like when it does happen, it hits extra hard because you're waiting, you've got anticipation, wondering what's going to happen, is something going to happen, like nothing's happened yet, what's going on, so that when it actually does happen, you've been waiting and concerned and disturbed and just like, oh god, this is weird, what's going on, to the point where you're really tense, and that's the perfect moment to just suddenly bam, you know what I mean? And that's what I love about a lot of Ty West's work, and he did a really good job with that in this movie, so I'm very glad to have it. $9, I would love to get it for a cheaper price because I already have the DVD, but I'll take $9 because I believe that's also the lowest price I've ever seen for it on Blu-ray, so not a bad deal, all things considered. And speaking of Ty West, I also decided to pick up another horror movie he did, The Innkeepers. This one was actually at $6.99, an even better deal. And I wouldn't say it's as spooky or scary or creepy as House of the Devil, but it's definitely got the haunted house vibe to it. It's the perfect kind of haunted house movie. It's kind of calling back to a lot of the haunted house movies of the past. I wouldn't say it's trying to be like a 70s or 80s kind of movie, but, you know, it's got inspiration from haunted house movies from throughout the history of the subgenre, if you will. So, I dig that. A lot of people didn't like it because it wasn't as hard-hitting, it wasn't as gory and, you know, blood in your face kind of stuff as you see with most modern horror movies. So people expect that from horror movies, and when they don't get it, some of them get a little pissed off and pissy. But some of us can still be kind of scared and terrified and disturbed by a simple little ghost story, and that's what this movie does very well. It's got that creepy gothic feel to it. I love that creepy gothic feel. So yeah, I had to have it, and I'm glad that I was able to finally find it for a really good price. $7 new, $6.99 is a very, very good price for this. And I highly recommend, if you have not picked it up yet, that's a price you don't want to miss. Go to Best Buy and get it, man. Next up here, I decided to pick up a movie that I watched with Brandon on Amazon called, or not Amazon, I watched it with him on Netflix. Let Us Pray. And yes, it's a play on Let Us Pray, right? But it's Prey. Now, with a title like that, you might think that kind of sounds stupid, but it's actually really crazy. This movie is just out there kind of crazy. You're not even expecting it to be the kind of crazy that it is, and then it just drops the bomb. You know what I mean? Like, it's got more in common with Supernatural than it does with your typical horror movie. Supernatural, the television show, alright? So there are a lot of supernatural elements to this movie, but it also has a lot of elements of, like, Hellraiser. So you combine the concept of the show Supernatural with scenery and disturbing images from Hellraiser, and you've got Let Us Pray. It's just, I think, awesome in a lot of ways. It's just incredible. And yeah, it's just the kind of stuff at some points that will make you just go, ooh, you know. But it's really cool. I don't know what else to say. It's just a really, really cool movie, and I kind of want to watch it again. But I mean, if you take one look at the images on the back here, you kind of get an idea. At one point, you've got a bunch of people behind prison bars, and then yeah, you see what I mean when I say it's kind of got a Hellraiser vibe to it there? Yeah, there's some pretty twisted shit that happens in this movie, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, but this was on sale for $7.99. Great deal, fantastic movie. I don't know if it's on or Netflix. I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, so if it's not, then I definitely recommend even just blind buying it for $7.99. But if it is, go ahead and check it out on Netflix and see for yourself. And when you do, I think you'll agree $7.99 is a great price to have it on Blu-ray. Next up here, I found the re-release. Finally, they did a re-release of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original movie that they did in the 90s. And unfortunately, it has this garish, ugly, disgusting pink cover art. And they're not trying to hide what they were going for with that cover art with this particular quote here. Plenty of teen appeal. Yeah, they're trying to aim at a teenager audience with this one, I guess. Maybe they think teenagers actually use Blu-rays, but in my experience, they don't. Barking up the wrong tree there. But either way, I remember this movie and watching it and thinking it was just great because it's a horror comedy, guys. It's definitely a horror comedy, and I felt like pretty damn funny. It's not the funniest horror comedy you're ever going to see, but I feel like it had a charm to it that I enjoyed. A lot of people who are like purists of the Buffy franchise hate this movie because it's nothing like the TV series, but I still like it. I still love some of the characters in it, and it's been so long since I've actually watched the movie that I really wanted to return to it, but it has been out of print on Blu-ray here for at least, I think, 2 years now. So, like, fetching not necessarily collector's prices, but fetching a fairly high price, a $20 to $30 range on average is what I've seen typically for the original release on Blu-ray. So when this finally got re-released recently for $7.99 on Blu-ray at Best Buy, I said, yeah, I'll do that. $7.99 is better than $15 or $20, and that's what the other one was going for, so might as well. And this one, of course, has the digital copy. It's got a few special features, but not much. Featurette, theatrical trailer, and TV spots. Don't know if the original release had anything more or anything better, but whatever. I'm just glad to be able to get this on Blu-ray and not have to pay too much for it, and not have to worry about it being out of print anymore when it was something that I wanted. It was another one of those titles that I was waiting for too damn long, and I waited so long that eventually it went out of print, and I regretted waiting so long for it to go down in price. Well, $7.99, that's a decent price for it. I'm happy with that. I'm glad they brought it back. My penance for waiting so long is that now I have to have the movie in this garish, disgusting pink cover version. But, whatever. I'll deal with it. It's just that Buffy doesn't strike me as the neon pink type, but okay, you totally understand the movie you have here, guys. You totally get it. Anyways, last but not least, I think probably the best deal they had at Best Buy was Sleepwalkers here for $5. $4.99 for Sleepwalkers. Now, I know a lot of people hate this movie and consider it one of the worst movies ever made from a Stephen King story, but I actually kind of liked it. I kind of like this movie. It's not great. It's not perfect. It's very, very corny, very cheesy. But weren't most Stephen King stories brought to film at that time period, whether they were miniseries or movies? Most Stephen King movies that products that came out at the time were not necessarily perfect. They were not very good. Even if you go back to like The Stand, even if you watch that, it's not perfect. There are cheesy, goofy elements to that one as well. So you're going to have that no matter what you do. But there's a certain charm to these. And I remember watching them as a kid, or not necessarily a kid, but, a younger, like teenager, you know what I mean? And even at some points like preteen, because they would show this movie on like TNT and TBS and stuff like that. And I think a couple times on like USA, Up All Night or whatever. Was it Up All Night? I don't remember what they call it, but they had like Monster Vision on TNT and stuff like that, you know what I mean? So, I saw it a few times because of things like that on TV, and it was the TV cut, mind you. But I still enjoyed certain aspects of it. I felt like it was very creepy, and I dig the story. I think it's a pretty interesting story, but that doesn't surprise me because it's a Stephen King story, and he is typically a pretty good storyteller. So yeah, to be able to get it for $5, I don't know if I would have paid anything more than $5, but very glad to be able to get it for such a good price. Can't lie. Very, very good price. And it's a Mick Garris movie. Mick Garris is one of the most notable people in the horror community when it comes to horror movies. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Very happy with this. Very happy with all of these pickups, really. But that was definitely the best deal at $5. So, yeah. Well, maybe it was the cheapest. I'll put it that way. The best deal, I think, was probably the Innkeepers at $7. But yeah, all these are really good deals and lower prices than they typically are. So, yeah, I gotta say, pretty happy with the kind of titles that they had on sale for Halloween this year at Best Buy. Kudos. I mean, usually I don't have a lot of things to give Best Buy kudos on, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, that'll do it for me today. Thanks for watching, you guys. Catch you later. Peace.